What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Bronx Pinstripes show. It's November 1st. It's been a month since the Yankees have played a baseball game. We still haven't heard from the powers that be, Cashman, Steinbrenner, and maybe even Boone. Sounds like we're going to hear from them potentially next week, according to Bob Clappish and some guy who can't spell Brian on Twitter. But Scott, how you doing?
I'm doing well. I started thinking about new rules that MLB potentially put into place once I heard Dombrowski talking about after he addressed the fans and addressed the Philadelphia area about the Phillies when they exited a day after or 2 days after they lost, and he went to the podium and took the questions and answered all the hard questions and did all those things. And he mentioned something about MLB having a rule that you gotta either do it within 2 days or you have to wait until the World Series. So I'm assuming that was it's a playoff thing, right? You can't just, as an exited playoff team, you can't be talking in the middle of the World Series, or at least that's what they want. But for a regular season team, I don't remember, and I asked you guys if we remember any mandate happening from MLB saying can't talk till after the postseason, like keep the attention on baseball and not you, be a team guy. I don't remember that ever happening, but when Dombrowski said that, it got my mind wondering. But at least he was able to address people. He sat up there and talked to people and gave them things, whether they wanted to hear it or not. He addressed them, and yeah, our guys have not done that, and there's a lot of questions.
I don't think that's a rule. Also, because in the 400 articles that have mentioned Brian Cashman and Steinbrenner not speaking to the media, they have not mentioned it. And I feel like The Athletic, The Post, someone is MLB.com, someone is going to mention, oh, by the way, they can't actually speak yet. Like somebody would mention that.
Yeah, I would think so. And also, did they miss a window to speak? I don't remember that.
No, because the Yankees have been playoff team the last few years who have exited, and they've always spoke a week or 10 days later, which is like in the middle of the ALCS or potentially even middle of the World Series.
Yeah, so I don't know. I threw it out there in our back end chat just to see if it rang any bells. But he definitely said it and was alluding to something, and I don't know what the hell he was alluding to.
I think what Dombrowski was alluding to is like he can't speak freely on players and decisions
that could be it.
Until after the World Series when they're officially free agents and things like that, which is fine. That's understandable. But like,
he has a 2-day window to do it while the season is still there because they're still under control of the team. 2 days, I guess, after whatever that time frame is, they become, in international waters essentially where you can't talk about them.
But you can still, as the Yankees, you can still address things. I think it's comes down to, they knew people were pissed about the season. And any question that was going to be asked to them in the weeks following the season ending, they weren't going to have answers that satisfied people. So they're just like, let's let it simmer. Let's just let it fizzle for a little while. Let's let the temperatures cool. And then we'll come back at them in November when people have completely forgotten about how trash we were this year. And maybe we'll dang a couple flashy things. Oh, we're going to be in the mix on Soto. Oh yeah, Ohtani, definitely going to be in the mix on Ohtani. Let's dash a couple, dangle a couple shiny objects in front of people, get them all gleamy-eyed, and maybe they'll forget we sucked ass this year.
Yeah. Clappish, go drop this real quick. Go write an article about this.
Yeah. Heyman, tell everyone that we think Juan Soto's good and would definitely be interested in him if the Padres make him available.
Bob, nobody believes
Breaking
you.
News.
Bob, nobody believes you. Just say whatever you want. Anything. Just keep us in the headlines.
So what we're doing today is we're going to be previewing the offseason, not exactly from the Yankees standpoint. Obviously, it's going to be Yankees leaning, but just from a general MLB offseason league-wide perspective. A couple of news items first, though. Aaron Judge made it to the World Series.
Yeah, congratulations. Sort of Mookie Betts.
Mm-hmm. Honored before Game 3 of the World Series, Judge was, for winning the Roberto Clemente Award. Obviously, an awesome honor for him. He kind of spoke about how surprised he was and joked like when he got the phone call from Jason Zillo, he thought there was like some big news happening with the team, maybe a trade or something like that. I think that was completely in jest. I don't think he actually thought that there was a big trade coming. But there was an article.
Why? Because he would already know about it?
I think so.
I mean, when Jason Zillo calls, something's going on, right? Zillo's like, he's the conduit between. Well, apparently not with Judge. Judge has a direct line, but
well,
Zillo's
here's the thing,
conduit.
though. When the Yankees traded for Giancarlo Stanton back in 2018, Judge had only been a rookie at that point, and he was consulted before making that trade by Brian Cashman and Steinbrenner saying, here's an opportunity for us. What are your thoughts?
Yeah.
Basically clearing it with Aaron Judge.
Yeah.
And I didn't expect Aaron Judge to say, no, don't trade for Giancarlo Stanton. Just like Derek Jeter didn't say, no, don't trade for Alex Rodriguez back in 2004. And Derek Jeter had a hell of a lot more pull in 2004 than Aaron Judge did in 2007, or even Aaron Judge does now. Okay. And Jeter didn't even want to nix that, even though deep down he probably should have and probably wanted to. So don't you think if the Yankees were going to be trading for, say, Juan Soto or something like that, Aaron Judge would be looped in before the trade is completed?
I mean, you would hope so, but that would really mean that they need to lean on a common sense department that doesn't exist, to make sure that you're talking about major additions like that are dealing with player personnel, with your captain. And even back when he was a rookie, they did have a section of the stadium named after him at that point. So yeah, you gotta ask that guy. You're basically going all in at that point. I feel like at that moment we knew he was going to be captain at some point. It was just a matter of time. So yeah, you would think so, but would not surprise me at all in the slightest, in the least bit, that he has no idea what's happening and then it happens. Would not surprise me at all.
The Yankees have lost common sense between 2018 and now somehow.
Oh, most definitely. Most definitely. It went out the window by hiring Aaron Boone. That was where
that had already happened, though.
I know. That's where it started. That's my point. 2017, they're like, oh, you guys overachieved with the young team. Let's fire that guy, clear house. You're a couple pitches away from the World Series with a team that should never, have even been in that position, who was dead in the rights at multiple times in the playoffs. Let's just clear house. Like, that's where it started. It's bad.
There was so not much in that article. The article in the New York Post, I think, got my attention because it said the Yankees are working on changes from philosophies, players, coaches, and everything. And then the article, literally, that's all it said. Judge thinks they're working on everything. Okay, great. Thanks. Looking forward to that. But one change that definitely is going to happen is the Yankees will have a new hitting coach, third in less than a year, because Sean Casey is not coming back, citing reasons for basically family. Needs to be with his daughters, and he's divorced, so he can't spend so much time on the road. Completely respect that decision if that's truly why, but at the same time, was that not a factor when you took the job in July of last year? Like, it's just very odd that.
Yeah, but it's like summertime, a couple months. It was not a big commitment at that point. I think when you're going into a new season, that's spring training, that's the full year, that's travel the whole time. It's different. He was
just
on
felt doing this for a couple months.
Yeah, it was like a sabbatical. Right. It was just,
as a hitting coach. What? I've never.
It was free tickets. I could see a
special advisor or something like that show up on a couple Saturdays at Yankee Stadium, like Andy Pettitte is doing as like pitching advisor. Like,
he wasn't there very long. He didn't do anything. He was just hanging out.
Well, according to some inside sources who are unnamed, he made them worse.
Well, they're called statistics. Yeah.
Well, I love how they're citing like, oh, the Yankees WRC plus went from 96 to 92. Oh, so they went from 4% worse than the league to 8%.
And Sean Casey was the reason. Look, honestly, all of the reports that have come out, and I love the fact that they need to be anonymous. They need to be anonymous to say the truth. Like that was what was written in the article. Like, names are left out because they didn't feel comfortable. Like, this is the mafia talking about something without, the repercussions. Randy Levine will come down hard with the pen. And
I don't think this was Randy Levine speaking. I think
it was not Randy Levine speaking. It was the person who is fearful of Randy Levine and his pen. That's who it is. And but they're actually in so many words really using him as a little bit of a scapegoat, which is crazy. It's crazy talk.
It's asinine. Like, when you read from this Athletic article,
and this is not the first time we've heard these numbers. I feel like there's a plant here. Like, I don't want to use my name because this is a plant by Cashman or somebody. Like, let's just throw out some nerd stats that people, like, half the people might know what they're talking about, but they look worse.
So if you're listening and you're like, why are you guys talking about this? This happened like over a week ago. This happened, of course, like 6 hours after we recorded the last episode, and we're only doing one a week now. But this Athletic article, it said that Lawson's direction essentially was to emphasize the idea of hitting the ball hard and in the air to the pull side, and his methods were drivers in the relatively quick ascension to the majors of top prospects Jason Dominguez, Oswald Peraza, Anthony Volpe, Everson Pereira, and Oswaldo Cabrera. But they weren't in direct line with the philosophies of Casey, which included working into deeper counts and emphasizing hitting to right center field, among other things, middle of the field approach. And some question whether the disconnect may have contributed to some degree of the second half struggles of several of the rookies.
Okay, first of all, this is so egregious that it makes my blood boil. And a lot of these comments didn't come out right after Casey was like, some of these have been trickling in over the last week, right? But to say that the approach of Sean Casey is part of the reason why there were struggles. First of all, some of these guys were September call-ups. They were not there very long. They were there for a very short amount of time. And
Volpe is the only one there that you can even point to, but also Volpe went through wild swings this season. Basically, he had 2 hot streaks and was pretty mediocre the rest of the time.
Let me finish my thought on that, please. Because when Volpe was at his best, he was using the whole field. When Volpe was at his best, he was going the other way. He was using the middle of field. He had power to right field. So to say that the pull side is, and the approach for pull side, which leads to a lot of strikeouts, uncovers the outside of the plate on a lot of hitters until you get that completely down. That's not an easy thing to do throughout. And that's probably why there's, all of the success in the minor leagues. And then you get to the major leagues and you're like, this guy is just trying to pull the damn ball. I'm going to pepper him with outside fastballs and he's going to give me a weak fly ball to the right side, or he's going to strike out. And until you start making the adjustment in the major leagues, then you're not going to be able to hit me. And we've seen that time and time again. So yeah, Sean Casey's approach of work the count, see the pitches, go the other way, go with what is giving you is a good approach. It's a good approach. And there can be a blend of the two, but to say that is the reason why, like, I'm not going to let that stand with Sean Casey. Sean Casey was also Boone's guy, by the way. And if
he was Boone's buddy who was hired for some reason. It seemed like more of we just need like a glue guy in the coaching staff, less of a skill set. But let's just take a minute to, if they're true, I don't know why they're not bringing Casey back. Frankly, I don't really care whether Casey came back or not. Made no difference to me. But let's just look on the fact that they had one approach that was not working, and then they're like, let's completely reverse that and use a half a season worth of sample, which was already a trash season.
Not even half of a season, yeah.
To say, oh, that didn't work either. That's just completely asimine.
And it's not like they didn't know did they not talk to him? Did they speak about his hitting philosophy?
They only listen
before they hire a hitting coach?
They listened to 2 episodes of his podcast, and Aaron Boone said that he's one of his buddies, and they're like, cool, done. He's got
and
the
they
job.
Saw some demonstrations on the MLB network. They're like, that guy looks like he knows what he's talking about. Josh Donaldson's next. Josh Donaldson's going to come in.
What's the mini field on MLB Network called? What do they call that? It's Jackie Robinson Field. They saw as he's in a full suit and tie. They showed him, taking practice swings, and that looks with a mini bat like that. That's the guy we need.
But yeah, there was no, it wasn't a mystery as to the way that he approaches hitting. He literally had it on, his approach recorded and on national television. So you could go back and literally watch the videotape of what his approach is. So to say that that it was a completely opposite approach and it didn't align with what they were doing in the philosophies of the org. Well, you knew that.
They were purposely making a hire that was the opposite of what they had just tried and didn't see results with. Like, that was the whole point of hiring Casey. And then you're going to make a decision, according to some reports, they're making a decision to not bring back Casey because that didn't work. And they're pointing to some of the struggles. When all of those guys that they mentioned, like you said, were either September call-ups, so not a factor in here, Volpe, who had 2 hot streaks this season, and that's it. And then how about the fact that Oswaldo Cabrera actually was better at the end of the season when he was called up in August than he was with Dylan Lawson? Oswaldo Cabrera actually hit in September. Oh, what about DJ LeMahieu, who hit in the second half of the season?
Yeah.
Any credit to Casey there? Or no, he's a veteran guy, so all of that work was just on DJ LeMahieu, which may very well be the case. But it's just like, you can't cherry pick on guys and say this is who he helped and who he didn't help.
They're also cherry picking on what the hell is actually happening here, because
it's so stupid.
It's extremely two-faced to say that, yeah, he was he had the opportunity to come back. It was his personal choice to not come back. And that when he doesn't come back, you're like, yeah, the reason why one of the reasons why is because the Yankees were worse under him. Yet he did have an open invitation to come back from everything that we know.
Or did he misspeak on the last day of the season when he was like, I think I have the job if I want the job?
No, I've seen it multiple times that he believes that he had the job, even if he said he wasn't going to go back.
Maybe he was like, this team is going to suck next year too. I don't want to deal with this. I'd rather sit in my basement and watch baseball.
I don't know, but they say one thing and then there's another thing, and then they just keep going back and forth, the complete opposites of what's talking. But they're still peppering out some, just to make sure, throw some stats out there to make sure that we have, some propaganda to support our agenda in whichever way we're talking this week.
It's also
indirectly, because we won't talk directly to the media.
It's also just funny, the stats they pointed to, because it's like, oh, so you went from sucky to a little bit more sucky. Great.
Yeah.
Got it. Oh boy. Okay. Off season. Let's start setting the scene for our GM episode, which we're saying we're going to do next week. I want to do it next week, but
if they're talking though, I want to hear what they're saying and all that. So maybe we go 1 week after that. Maybe we do it the week of, after the World Series.
If there's going to be, well, that would be next week. The World Series is going to end at some point this week. If they're doing that press conference next week, I definitely want to spend a full episode talking about that. And also, yeah, like you said, want to hear what they have to say. So the GM
and if they are doing that, for the record, that is after the World Series, which was what Dombrowski said.
Okay, so it's a new rule that no one is stating.
I'm just saying. There's a secret rule that apparently is out there that aligns with what's happening. But
if my point is, if you're listening to this and it's December, scroll ahead 1 or 2 episodes and you will hear me and Scott's actual GM plans.
Yeah.
But
and we are going to do it a little different this year, right? We agreed to that we're, in the past, we've always done this within the potential eyes of Brian Cashman, what we believe the Yankees need, but also, in line with what has happened in the past, just to make it as realistic as humanly possible. Not to say that we're going to go unrealistic and sign everybody and spend, $800 million, but, or maybe you are, but bold prediction, $800 million payroll.
Seems to have worked for the Texas Rangers just fine.
Yeah, it's true. Just get Seager at short.
Sign talent. That's a bold strategy, Texas. Good job.
But we are going to do it in the way that we see fit and kind of take the personality of the front office out of the equation this time.
Good. All right, so the Yankees free agents, you should know all of these guys, but guys hitting free agency: Severino, Montes, IKF, Peralta, Middleton, McAllister, and Weaver. I don't expect any of those guys to. This is, again, I don't want to get into the trap of talking about what we think the Yankees are going to do. My point is, on these guys, none of these are like significant losses for the team. Maybe a couple will be back. I could see a couple being back, but none of these free agents are like last year where it's like, well, first priority has got to sign Aaron Judge. No one's first priority is signing Zach McAllister or Frankie Montes.
7 out of 10 Yankees fans don't know who Zach McAllister are or Luke Weaver, possibly Kenyon Middleton.
Kenyon Middleton, well, he was the big acquisition for Brian Cashman last offseason.
So maybe they saw the headlines. Maybe they saw the headlines, but yeah.
The free agent market is an interesting one. It's very pitching heavy. There's a lot of good pitchers on the market, but the number one player on the market is obviously Shohei Ohtani. You can call him a pitcher, but he's not going to be a pitcher in 2024. But I'm taking from MLB.com, who listed out the top 25 free agents and the potential fits. The way they came up with these potential fits were obviously need, but also, is that team willing to spend for the player, and has that team been rumored to be interested in that player? So it's not just like any team that could need Shohei Ohtani. It's teams that are realistically going to be fits for Ohtani. And they listed the Angels, the Dodgers, the Giants, and the Mets as the top potential fits for Ohtani.
There's a team on here real quick that is a sleeper team, and I'm just going off of the news cycle, but he was down in Miami, I think, with Lars Nootbaar, who played on the Japanese international team, also a St. Louis Cardinal. So, maybe some recruitment happening there, a familiarity on that
shocker
side.
Of all shocker if the Marlins go in for...
No, St. Louis.
Oh, St. Louis. I thought you said Miami.
They were in Miami. Lars Nootbaar, your boy that you wanted to sign or trade at some point.
I did. Jason Dominguez.
Yeah. I forgot about that. But some possible recruitment happening behind the scenes, and little sleeper team right there in St. Louis who needs to probably make a splash this year.
The interesting comp is that if you're just looking at Ohtani as an offensive player, he obviously compares to what Aaron Judge has been. And last year, Judge got 9 in 360 and was 1 year older from Ohtani. So if you're using that as a baseline for Ohtani's contract, and then you sprinkle in the potential pitching in the coming years, you're maybe looking at a $500 million contract. Like, it's very hard to compute what he's going to get. Or it could be a short-term thing, or it could be based on if he pitches or if he doesn't pitch, like the value of the contract changes. I don't know how it's all going to work. That's also going to make it kind of difficult for us in our GM plans if we are going after Ohtani. But it's
going to be really interesting. Just like you said, there's so many different, and I know we've talked about this and kind of how it could break down. One is the injury, just for him personally, really terrible timing. But at the same time, we could see a very different contract than we've ever seen with incentives, not even incentives, but things that kick in if in fact, the arm gets back to a point where he is pitching at the major league level and he's contributing to a team. Like, that could activate almost an entire other contract within the contract. It's kind of crazy to think about what the potential could be for something with him and the different types of mechanisms that are going to be in this thing. I wish Scott Boras were his agent so that we could just, combine all the things and see what happens.
If you're a team like the Yankees, that's also interesting, or the Yankees or any of these teams that are potentially weighing the tax threshold as a decision in signing Ohtani. If you do have a structure of the contract where it changes value depending on if he pitches or not, that's a whole other layer to this, is how that impacts tax thresholds in the future.
For sure.
And also, like with baseball, like they're guaranteed contracts. In football, you have these contingent options and things like that based on a number of different factors. Like, there's always options in baseball and there's incentive bonuses. But I can't remember, it's never happened where it's literally contingent upon the player doing something or not doing something, like pitching or not pitching.
Right. I mean, he completely changes his value if he's on the mound and at the plate, contributing at both sides. So yeah, this is unprecedented. We haven't seen anything like this because we haven't seen a player like this. So, but if I'm his agent, I'm certainly building something in, with that regard. Or, you're going after one of these, these mercenary contracts for a couple of years and going back out into the market again. But I just have a hard time seeing that's gonna happen, because that mercenary contract would have to be insane.
But
unless it's just 1 year, which I just don't see happening.
It's
too risky for him.
When he left Japan, he was not eligible for an actual free agent contract because I think of his service time in Japan. So he was already betting on himself when he left Japan. So he could bet on himself again by taking these mercenary deals. I don't think he needs to,
though. That's the thing. You're going to have suitors that are going to build something in and be creative with this contract so that he doesn't. And, maybe there's an out clause a little bit further down the road, but, a 1 to 2 year deal. It's just really risky for a guy like him. It really is. Considering his talent and the type of player that he is, it's extremely risky to go out and just, sign a short-term contract. He doesn't need to.
Sometimes with free agency in baseball, we see the top guy in the market get signed in the first, week. He's snatched up. He's got five teams in on him and he makes a decision. Other times, like when we had Harper and Machado in that offseason, the big guys were left standing at the end.
Yeah.
How do you think it's going to go with Ohtani? Do you think he's going to be one of the first dominoes to fall or one of the last dominoes to fall?
I think he's going to be one of the first ones. I don't think the market can really move much without him identifying it. Well, there are players there are teams that are out, just period out. But he's such a big deal. You got to believe that there's already been floated interest and they already have an idea of like where they're going to be talking. Granted, whether that's tampering or not, I promise you it's happening. So I would expect it. I would expect it to be done. I can't see a guy like Ohtani dragging this out for through the offseason. I just think he's going to want to get settled.
Yeah, because when teams are going after Ohtani, like that's the centerpiece of their offseason, and they probably have plans B and C if they don't get Ohtani. So they want to know that up front so they can move on to the other options, which are significant, especially on the pitching side. Yoshinobu Yamamoto, top pitcher out of Japan, is ranked as the second best free agent on the market. He's 25 years old. He, the last 2 to 3 years in Japan, has won all of the awards. He won the MVP and Cy Young each of the last 2 years. Both years, he won both of those awards, and each of the last 3 years, he was the pitching Triple Crown winner. That's how dominant he has been in Japan. MLB scouts believe him to be a number 1 or a number 2 in the rotation, in an MLB rotation.
Yeah, and what's interesting too is that, because Ohtani is coming in as a position player, or batter, a DH in this initial season, we know that for a fact. The offensive side of free agency isn't really much competition outside of Cody Bellinger, who, you could argue is a risky player.
But also, like, when you're comparing Ohtani to Bellinger, like as good as Bellinger has been this year, that's a big drop off in offensive production. Whereas on the pitching side, you can make an argument for 5 of these guys is like potentially the top pitching target. I mean,
for sure.
Yamamoto is ranked as the number 1, but none of us have ever seen him pitch. So it's like there's that wild card.
Yeah, absolutely. But and Ohtani not coming in as a pitcher for this, but again, going to be in competition for years 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, however long his contract is with other players. But yeah, on the offensive side, doesn't have a ton of competition.
The Dodgers, Mets, and Red Sox are rumored top teams for Yamamoto. I mean, just whatever team, just sign Ohtani and Yamamoto, and then just have a 24-hour stream going on in Japan, just with like constant ads. You make up those contracts in 3 weeks.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. That's why the Yankees not being in on Ohtani is insanity. They should be in on him just purely from the marketing side.
Number 3 player on the market, Blake Snell, 31 years old. He had a rough start to the season, but now he's the NL Cy Young favorite because in his final 23 starts, he pitched to a 1.2 ERA.
Yeah, he found it. He found it again. He found that thing that was missing, because he had definitely, starting with the World Series appearance that he got taken out of, it started going downhill a little bit and didn't have a good start at all in San Diego. And then, like you said, rough start this year. But then really did find it. And, health is a factor here. But he's significant, and he's a guy that 31 years old, like you're still going to get some good years out of him. And he knows how to pitch. That's the thing. Like he does know how to pitch. And I think that mechanically he got back to the right place. And when he's mechanically right, he's a dominant number 1.
Cardinals, Dodgers, Padres, top rumored teams for him. If you're the Yankees, you can't sign Blake Snell because having Blake Snell and Carlos Rodon in the same rotation is too much tool baggery. You can't have 2/5 of your rotation just being that big of tools.
I mean, at least Blake Snell is a tool that knows how to pitch in the AL East and has had.
How many pitches does Blake Snell have?
Multiple Cy Youngs, more than 2.
Okay. And now we get to the next hitter on the market, Cody Bellinger, who's 28 years old. We were just talking about this before we started recording. It's going to be really interesting what kind of contract he gets, because he had a great season with the Cubs, hit 307, 356, 525 with 26 home runs, and also posted his best ever strikeout rate at 15.6%. That's his career best mark. He was rumored to be traded at the deadline, did not get moved. He took a prove me contract with the Cubs, and he proved it. He's 28 years old. He's a versatile defensive player, but he also is coming off a lot of rough seasons. On the face of it, a 28-year-old guy is in his prime. Like, shouldn't he be getting 7 years? But all reports on the markets are he could be getting between like 3 and 6 years, depending on, what source you're looking at.
So he had a couple down years in LA, obviously,
after winning the MVP.
But injury had a lot to do with that. And if you look at, and I'm sure if you talk to him, like this was probably the first year that he felt really good, felt really healthy, and was confident in that regard. So yeah, the 1-year deal for him, it was betting on himself. He knew what he felt like, and he knows the type of player he is. It's risky. It definitely is. The biggest thing you look at, and again, if you're going back to injuries, IDing where he is with this strikeout rate, 15.6 K rate in 2023. That shocked me. Absolutely shocked me compared to what he had been He was a huge strikeout guy, just did not fit the makeup of this team, depending on who you're asking, I guess. If you ask the Yankees brass, it does fit it because he strikes out a lot. But is that the real Cody Bellinger? Is that the real thing? Is that the real deal? 26 home runs. So he's got that power back. He's hitting for average. When you look at his line and you see the name, it's a good player. Like you said, he can play defense across the outfield, which is something the Yankees need. He can play a little bit of first base. So it does fit on paper. It scares the living shit out of me, but it does fit on paper.
And the Yankees are one of the top rumored teams to be in on Bellinger, along with the Cubs and the Giants. Aaron Nola, 31 years old. Cardinals, Giants, Phillies, top teams going to be in on him. His numbers definitely indicate he's past his prime, but he's never been a guy that's going to blow you away with 98 miles an hour. He's always been more of a command pitcher, and that has not lacked. It's actually gotten better in recent years. This article was just citing that his walk numbers and his strikeout to walk ratio have been getting better year over year. So that could mean he will age well as a pitcher.
Yeah, if you know how to pitch and you're not just throwing gas, then you can probably, if you can paint corners, you're going to do well in this league for a long time. You know, he's a nice player. He's a good starting pitcher. You kind of know what you're getting with him.
Mm-hmm. Josh Hader, top relief pitcher on the market, 30 years old. Angels, Phillies, Texas as the top teams going to be in on him. He's clearly the top relief pitcher on the market. And if you compare that to last offseason, Edwin Diaz got 5 years, $102 million. So are you going to spend $100 million on a relief pitcher? That's basically what you're going to have to do to get Josh Hader.
Yeah, it's I mean, when he's at his best, he's one of the most dominant relievers in the game. So it's a matter of you believe you're capturing that, and he's going to look. I think at this point with him, because he's changed teams so many times, he's going to look for as long of a deal as he can get.
I think that he's going to get the Edwin Diaz contract. I mean,
you think he's going to get that much?
There's no reason he wouldn't. I mean, why? I mean, he's been every bit as good as Diaz was up until last year. He's 30 years old. He's going to get that.
Yeah.
I mean, at least 4 years and, $85 million or something like that.
Would it surprise you if the Yankees went after? I don't want to do too much of this, I know, but
I think it would surprise
like the natural
me.
Conversation has to go to the Yankees.
Yeah, I think at this point, how they've operated their bullpen over the past number of years, it basically since they signed Chapman and Britton to those big contracts, they have moved away from spending $15+ million on a single player in the bullpen because they've been able to get production for a couple $1 million a player in the bullpen. And then you've seen them make moves like signing Tommy Kahnle for, a 2-year deal, stuff like that.
Yeah.
It would shock me if they signed Hader is the answer.
Yeah, it would surprise me too. It wouldn't shock me, but it would surprise me because of what you just said. It seems like they have gone away from that philosophy a bit, but maybe they go back to it because they're doing an audit.
Sonny Gray, number 7 player on the market. He's 34 years old, believe it or not.
Wow.
Our guy Sonny Gray is getting up there in age.
Up. Threw 184 innings in 23. That was surprising.
He's been one of the best pitchers in the American League the last 2 years for the Twins. Braves, Cardinals, Twins, going to be in on your guy Gray. It would be a massive mistake for the Yankees to bring back Sonny Gray.
Okay, Atlanta, that market checks out. St. Louis, that market checks out. Minnesota, that market checks out. He'll be okay there.
Yep, he'll be great in those markets, just like he was great in Cincinnati. Jordan Montgomery, will we see a reunion with Monty? Yankees are not listed as one of these teams. Cardinals, Cubs, Rangers. Monty's going to be 31 years old. I think he turns 31 in December of this year. And interestingly for Monty, because he was traded this season, he cannot get a qualifying offer, so there's no draft pick associated with signing him.
Yep, that's he's developing his market right now as we speak. So the guy has been super dependable. He's going to get a good contract, and I'm really happy for him. He deserves it, and I hope he kills it on this contract. I really do. And I would love for him.
He's going to get like $100 million. Yeah, he's going to get $100 million. Jordan Montgomery.
Yeah, good for him, man. He's done it everywhere he's gone. He's pitched well.
I mean, he's been better since he left the Yankees, though. He was useful with the Yankees as a nice term for him. Yeah. He's been great outside of the Yankees. JD Martinez. Immediately, I'm like, this is the next Nelson Cruz, where he's just going to hit until he's 42 years old, and then he's going to retire. He's going to go from team to team. He's going to hit .285 with 25 home runs. This year with the Dodgers, he had an .893 OPS with 33 home runs. But any team that signs JD Martinez, you might have to deal with some injuries, but he's going to hit when he's in the lineup.
Isn't this interesting? He's 36 years old. And when you look at a guy like JD Martinez, who you said, he's just a pure hitter. Ever since he had one down year when they took the iPads away and he couldn't, he couldn't make in-game adjustments on the iPads. And then
in-game adjustments.
I'm just saying, but he's been a pure hitter his entire career. This guy hits for average. He hits for power. I didn't realize 33 home runs even last year. That's more power than I remembered him.
At Dodger Stadium, which is not the easiest place.
Yeah. So when I saw the Nelson Cruz comp, I'm like, Nelson Cruz is more of a power hitter. And then I saw 33 home runs. I'm like, okay, check me. That's more than
I just meant from the standpoint of like Nelson Cruz. You're like, wait, this guy's still hitting. Wait, this guy's still hitting to a 900 OPS and he's 40.
But what's crazy? What I was going to say is that you look at him. Obviously, the DH spot in the Bronx is clogged up. But
clogged up is the thing needs some Drano.
But damn, would he fit nicely? Damn, would he fit nicely as a DH, as a guy coming in that knows how to hit, little veteran presence there. That's not going to be a problem at the plate at all. Man, would that be a nice fit?
Yeah,
and
I don't
much
think
cheaper.
It's going to happen.
Like way more production at a third of the cost, not even a quarter of the cost, and just a much better fit. A 36-year-old free agent would be a better fit. That's where we are. That's what's crazy about that.
Yep. Well, I mean, you couldn't be worse than what Giancarlo Stanton was this year.
But this guy does fit nicely.
Stanton was not. This is not hyperbole.
Yeah.
Statistically, he was the worst designated hitter in baseball.
Yeah.
Next up on the list, Matt Chapman, who I think is going to get way too much money this offseason. Mm-hmm. But the Yankees are listed as one of the teams interested in him, along with the Dodgers and the Blue Jays. He's 31 years old. He's still a really good glove at third base. But if you look at his last 3 years, he's a 108 OPS plus hitter. He's a little bit better than league average. The thing with Chapman, he goes through streaks, and I know he had a really hot streak with the Blue Jays, I think his first year with them, where they were like, oh my God, they can't believe they got Matt Chapman.
Came out of the gate hot, yeah.
Where he was hitting to like a 140 OPS plus, but then he went into a cold streak. What it's going to net out to is he's a little bit better than league average offensively, and he's a really good defensive third baseman. But I think you're going to have to pay out of the ass for that because he's clearly the top third baseman on the market, arguably the second best position player on the market behind Cody Bellinger. Because do you count Shohei Ohtani as a position player? Not really. He's a pitcher and he's a DH.
Not from a contract perspective.
Right. So I think Matt Chapman is going to demand a big contract, and I think that should take. If a little preview, I'm not signing Matt Chapman in my GM plans.
I mean, you won't see him in mine either. Just so you know, Ilya haven't even talked yet, but foot down, Chapman not being signed on this side. We're good. We're good on the defensive third baseman front. You know what I'm saying?
I think the Yankees are okay at infield. I think obviously Rizzo's injury last year skewed some things, but I think they're okay on infield. They need some help in the outfield. You can't go into the next season 2/3 of your outfield basically just blank.
Well, I mean,
black holes.
If you just look at the personnel currently, assuming no trades and guys are where they are, DJ LeMahieu slots in as the third baseman and is he's not the same glove as Chapman at third base, but he's not much of a drop off. And he can hit better. So we already have that guy.
So those are the top 10 players as ranked by MLB.com. There's 15 more players on this list here. I don't want to go through all of them one by one, but I do want to call out a couple of guys here. First thing, some more of the pitchers, because like I said, the starting pitchers on the market is deep. You've also got Kershaw, who might retire. You've got Eduardo Rodriguez, who's going to likely opt out of his final 3 years and $49 million of his deal with Texas. You've got another pitcher out of Japan, who I had not heard of before this, Shota Imanaga, who's 30, so he's pitched more in Japan. He's expected to be posted. He's got, quote, otherworldly strikeout to walk ratio of 8.21, so he's a control pitcher. The long-lasting belief is that control pitchers in Japan don't translate to the MLB as well as strikeout pitchers, but he's still another guy on the market that you're probably going to see posted and see signed. You've got Lucas Giolito.
I can't believe he's still 29 years old.
I know. I mean, he sucked after he got traded to both the Angels and
Dr.
Cleveland
Jekyll and Mr.
season.
Hyde. The guy can dominate, but then he can be absolutely, when he loses the plate, he's just a bad pitcher.
Yep. And then you've got Jack Flaherty as well. And then you've got also some other relief pitchers mixed in here. But you're talking about like 7 starting pitchers who, if you sign them, you're feeling okay. Like, this is a piece for our rotation. I'm not specifically talking about the Yankees. I'm talking about just teams in general. You got a lot of teams that are going to be in on pitchers, like especially in the AL East. You can make an argument every single team in the AL East is going to be buyers this offseason. Baltimore obviously needs pitching. Boston needs pitching. Toronto's going to have to replace some holes on their roster. The Rays, they never spend, but they're going to make moves. So every team should be making moves in the AL East, and there's a lot of starting pitching depth on the market, which is, I think, a bit of a rarity.
It is. One thing you mentioned is, I'm looking up something real quick. The Aaron Nola Rodriguez opting out of Detroit. You said Texas, Detroit.
I said Texas. I meant Detroit.
It's interesting though, looking at him and looking to see where the market gets set, because there's a lot of left-handed pitching available, which you don't normally see. So yeah, there's a lot of pitching, but there's a lot of left-handed pitching as well. And when you're going up for competition as far as contract-wise, and you're basically competing with these guys based on what team needs are, but you're going up with Snell and Jordan Montgomery and Sonny Gray, who can pitch to both sides, Aaron Nola. So there's steep competition. Kershaw's not going anywhere. If he's not a Dodger, he's retired.
If he pitches, he'll be with the Dodgers. But if you're Erod, you're looking, I can beat 3-49 right now on the market.
Yeah, but it's interesting to see that there's so much left-handed starting pitching. That's quality. It's not bad luck.
There's a lot of quality pitching on the market. And then from the offensive perspective, the names are just not as sexy. But one that I do want to touch on is the number 14th ranked free agent, Jung-Hoo Lee. He's out of Korea. He's 25 years old. He's expected to be posted by his Korean team. Scott Boras is representing him. And the scouting report on him is he is an above average defensive center fielder and an elite contact hitter, and he's left-handed, and he's 25 years old. I know nothing about this guy other than that one paragraph I read on this MLB.com article. But I'll tell you, elite contact hitter who can play a good center field and he's left-handed, I kind of like the sound of that.
Now we're getting too deep here. Yeah, it sounds nice. I mean, he's not a Bronx bomber as they want, but a guy who gets on base and uses he won't fit into the philosophy though. That's the problem. You know what I'm saying? Like he's a real juxtaposition for what the Yankees are trying to do as an organization on the offensive side of things. If he starts hitting the other way and has success, the Yankees are going to have some issues internally. So I don't know. I don't know if he fits the narrative.
Well,
did I talk you out of it?
The narrative sucks. I don't know. I just remember how much of and Stephen Kwan for the Guardians just like kind of fits that profile as well. And I just remember every time he stepped to the plate against the Yankees, it would be like a 9-pitch at bat, and then he would just bloop a single to left field, and I'd be like, God damn it. I would love that on the Yankees right now.
Yeah, that's what Sean Casey was trying to do, but again, not in line with what they're trying to do as an organization. Don't you know that? You got to have these have success through AAA. And then it's just it's a crapshoot.
You've got to be able. You've got to be a 900 OPS player through AAA, and then strike out a shit ton at the major league level.
Yeah,
got it. Free agency is not the only way. The Yankees or any team could get better this offseason. Couple of trade candidates around the league. Obviously, Juan Soto. I don't know what the Padres are going to be doing. They've got so many big players locked up for so long, and they're kind of in this weird spot. It's like, do we want to lock up Juan Soto as well and continue to go for this? Or do we want to trade Juan Soto now, who's entering his last year of arbitration, get a boatload of prospects and try and sustain for the longer term? Juan Soto somehow is still only 25 years old, even though he's been in the league for 3 decades, but he is clearly the number one acquisition. I don't know, would you put him above Ohtani as like a better acquisition? Maybe for the Yankees, a better acquisition?
No, I would not.
No? Okay. I was just thinking because of the roster fit. I mean, as good as Ohtani is.
Again, roster fit, schmoster fit. It doesn't matter. This team is a disaster on the roster side of things. So you just get the player, please. Let's not go back down that road. Yes, so they're both high level players that would fit very nicely somewhere on this team.
Yeah. Next guy on this list, Tyler Glasnow. So news to me, he's going to make $25 million this year. And something tells me the Rays do not want to pay him $25 million.
Yeah, right, because the Rays don't do that, which is crazy. He scares me just because of his injury history. Granted, some of them have been fluky, but he's definitely got.
Well, didn't he blame one of the injuries on sticky stuff?
He
not being able to use sticky stuff.
Yes, he did. Overexertion.
Yep.
So he had to grip the ball too hard. It was something about There was something about the grip of the ball that hits. And I remember saying this because it actually hurts my elbow when I do this.
I think you agreed with him. I think you agreed with him.
Yeah. Like playing video games hurts my elbow because of the tendons being connected. So yeah, I get it. But yeah, he's too much of a risk for me.
So this rumor is basically just like looking at the history of the Rays. They're like, they don't pay players $25 million. They trade players that are going to make $25 million and they reload and they don't miss a beat. So that's probably what's going to happen with Glasnow. Corbin Burns, he's entering his last year of arbitration, and he's been rumored, Milwaukee, who knows what they're doing. The thing also about the NL Central is you could make an argument for all 5 of those teams to win the division next year.
100%. And, I one of my internal predictions on the season was St. Louis having a good year just because their personnel was where it is. Like they will reload and be competitive, and they were terrible this year. But it would not surprise me if they won the NL Central next year, going from where they were. So yeah, it's going to be a highly competitive division.
Mike Trout. Why is Mike Trout's name on trade rumor lists? Like,
why is he only 32? Years? Speaking of people who've been around for 19 decades, like he's 32. It's crazy.
I think he came up when he was 18 or 19 or something, just like Juan Soto.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I
don't understand what the hell he's doing out there. If at any point we're always looking at Trout, like demand something, speak up. Like, are you okay?
I think he's happy. No, I think he's cool, chilling in Orange County.
I guess he must
playing 107 games a year because he inevitably gets injured.
But he must feel good and must feel comfortable because he's in a position that you would think demands. Some authority within the organization to do things or get out if he wanted to. And he just stays. He's just there. Ohtani's not going to be there. Now, what's happening around you. It's not going to get better. The division has gotten significantly better now. You're in a very tough spot.
Here's what the Yankees should do. And I'm already going to tell you I'm joking. You go out and sign Ohtani. Yeah. Then you also trade for Mike Trout.
Yeah.
So then in 3 years, you have 4 DHs with Judge, Stanton, Trout, and Ohtani. Maybe we can get the league to petition that we can have 4 DHs.
It'd be a good thing to happen. Then you could get lots of bats. You could bring over JD Martinez at that point. No problem. We can improve it. Maybe Giancarlo Stanton wants to go home.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah. Everyone just this starry-eyed of, maybe some dumb team will take Giancarlo Stanton from us.
Yeah. Like the Angels for Mike Trout. Easy peasy.
They would get out from some money in that trade.
Not the craziest thing in the world.
It's not the craziest thing in the world.
But it's not. It takes a little bit of imagination.
A bunch of other names that might be moved this offseason for one reason or another. Jeff McNeil of the Mets, Willy Adames of the Brewers, Jonathan India of the Reds, Lane Thomas of the Nats, Anthony Santander of Baltimore is entering his last year of arbitration, Verdugo of Boston, Eloy Jimenez of the White Sox. The White Sox, so I was also going through the AL Central. I mean, the Twins basically can just run it back and dominate that division again because I feel like everyone in that division is a bit of a dumpster fire. The Guardians, I don't know what they are, but they just seem to be content not really doing anything forward or backwards. They're just, we're cool here. We're chilling. Francona's retiring. We're going to just run it back and win another 80 games next year.
Yeah, I wonder what Francona retiring, if at all, matters to them in what they're doing with their with their organization. I wouldn't be surprised if Detroit took another step up next year and was better. They're just one of those teams that have been loading on the young guy side, and feels like one of those teams that all of a sudden you're looking around and, oh my God, Detroit's good. How did that happen?
Maybe. Yeah, maybe. I mean, that division is winnable, even though I said the Twins should dominate it. And I think the White Sox should be in tank mode. I think they had
missed
dreams.
They screwed it up.
Yeah, they had dreams of competing last year, but their roster was completely top heavy. And once a couple guys went down, they had no depth. And I think they're going to have to tear it down and rebuild there.
They have some really interesting pieces if that does end up happening. If that ends up happening, they have some really interesting pieces on the position.
They could accelerate their rebuild if they trade away some of those pieces.
If they're saying that we're not going to do this in the next 5 to 6 years, and oh, by the way, our best couple players are probably, if we did extend them to the best contract we could possibly find, it's going to be like 8 years, something like that. If you're looking at a window that's really, really small and narrow, and a lot of things have to go right. So why not just take the huge advantage on the market, and like you said, get a haul and just hit the reset button.
I wonder if teams are going to look at what Baltimore did, which was basically a 3-year reset, which is not that long of a reset, and say, let's try and be what the Baltimore Orioles did.
You got to be able to hit like they did too. That's not, when I say hit, I mean hit on the prospects.
They hit on prospects through the draft because they didn't really acquire a lot of their top prospects through trades. I would argue it's harder to do that than it is to hit on prospects through trades, because when you're hitting on prospects, when you have some acquiring exactly.
Yeah, it's significantly harder. You really have to have a top flight development, scouting, analytics, whoever that team is, to ID talent and just see how they translate. You got to have a top notch team, and you got to have a low miss. And in baseball, it's such a high miss percentage that they did it in the short amount of time, which is crazy because we think about the Orioles and they've been in my brain, I feel like they've been bad for a long time. But
we went through this a couple of weeks ago. It was 3 years. It was 3 years,
which is crazy. It's wild. But they've just hit really well on their draft picks. And when you get a guy like,
and clearly they were able to develop them level to level, which is also, it's not just drafting the talent. You also need to nurture that talent, because we've seen plenty of talented players get drafted and then fall off at one point.
Yeah. No, they have a staple with a guy like Adley Rutschman, who's going to be, a centerpiece of that team and a leader of that team for 15 years. So
I mean, at the midseason rankings, they were still the number one system in baseball, despite calling all of those guys up to the majors.
Yeah. So I don't know where the hell we were going with that, but
the White Sox. But I was just
White
saying,
Sox.
Like teams like the White Sox might look at, when you because
it started with the Orioles with Machado, right? It kind of did start with Machado.
But they didn't really get like a haul for Machado. They got a couple of pieces.
No, but the decision to not have Machado.
Yes,
on
and
the roster,
that was at the 19 deadline, the 2019 deadline. They traded away Machado.
Yeah,
and then they sucked when you in did 2020. 19,
you made a choice as an organization, really, to start looking at the other side of things.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a precedent for sure, but you got to commit to it. And you also have to have the confidence in the people that you have.
I just think it's interesting that they had a 3-year reset, where prior to that, if you look at, what was the model for resetting your organization? It was what the Astros did, but they had like a 9-year drought of just sucking, and then they got good. But 3 years is not a long time. It was really, like I said, 2.5 years, because they went into 2019 with at least some percentage thought of, we can compete in 2019.
Yeah. Some would say the Yankees were on that path as well when they did that, when they sold at 16 and actually tried to speed up that process. They were there for a year and a half.
So just looking at the rest of the league, there's definitely, I think, more quote buyers than sellers this offseason. When you look at the AL West, the Rangers, obviously they're in the World Series, but the Astros and the Mariners all going to be competing for that division next year. I think the Angels who and Oakland probably not, but the Angels never seem like they're sellers. They always seem like they're buyers, even though everything within their organization should state otherwise. And then the NL East with the Braves, Phillies, Marlins, all of those teams, obviously playoff teams.
Bob Melvin going across in division, that doesn't happen very often when you see a manager pop over from one team in division to the next year, back-to-back years.
So if you're looking at acquiring players on the trade market this offseason, it's going to have to be opportunistic, obviously, like with Soto or maybe Glasnow, or a team who's looking to sell on a guy who's about to enter arbitration. I don't expect many teams, maybe the White Sox, as we just said, but I don't expect many teams to be like, have a pick at our 4 best players on our roster. We're just in full rebuild mode.
Yeah. The White Sox, that's the team. That's the team you look at that could be interesting and
I also don't love a lot of those players. I'm not like
a couple of them are okay. Yeah. They suck. They're terrible.
Closer look.
Yeah, they're
to
bad.
take a closer look.
It's a bad player, bad personnel.
All right, that's gonna wrap up our off-season preview. And it's some managers on the move, looking for new jobs: Phil Nevin, Buck Showalter, Gabe Kapler, Craig Counsell, Aaron Boone, hopefully, but not.
There's a need for managers. There's a shortage. There's a shortage in the Dusty Baker gone, Nevin gone.
Are people finally realizing like being a baseball manager kind of sucks now?
Yeah. Well, I mean, Dusty Baker's been doing it forever, so he's retiring. Good for him.
No, but what I'm saying is like, I don't know, like just being hired by a team to implement analytics and front office like decisions and stuff, like that doesn't seem rewarding as a job.
Yeah. Well, that approach is starting to waver a bit. Some of the old guy speak is starting to cut through the nerd speak with some of these teams, and maybe that's what the Yankees found in their audit.
Maybe audit. You think they're going to talk about their audit in the press conference?
I hope so. I would love to hear.
I just want
again.
Are they going to show a PowerPoint? Are they going to show a PowerPoint on what they found in the audit? A 17 slide PowerPoint on all the things that they uncovered.
Yeah, Cashman's going to have a laser pointer, and is going to be going through exactly what happened.
He's going to give a keynote.
Yeah.
All right.
I hope they speak, man, so we can dissect them.
I want them to
everything.
Speak. Yes, I want them to speak because that's an hour and a half of content for us that we get to pick apart and dissect words and trash them for. So sure.
When are aren't the GM meetings coming up?
Yes, they are
right after the World Series.
GM meetings and then early December winter meetings.
So
the GM meetings though, the GM meetings,
Scottsdale.
The GM meetings is like a bros weekend. That's what it is.
Yeah, but I understand that. But if you're going out there and you haven't even talked to anybody yet, like it's crazy. Like, are they going to do it from the GM meetings?
The GM, no. Like I remember, I forget where this. I read something somewhere where all the GM meetings are is they sit around, they drink scotch, and they smoke cigars, and they powwow.
Yeah, I mean, I get it, but that means they're going to be behind closed doors and not talking to the. It's just so strange.
So I think it's gonna. Yeah, I think it's gonna happen probably next Monday or Tuesday.
Yeah, just before the flight.
All right, that's going to wrap up today's episode. Thank you guys so much for listening, and we'll catch you again next week.